The title of America's richest person isn't Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, or Warren Buffett. Instead, it goes to late John D. Rockefeller. About a century ago, Rockefeller was the wealthiest American to ever live. Yet, he would have likely traded his fortune for the technologies and opportunities that the average person has today. So, let's look at some powerful advancements and trends. Next time you think you've got it rough, you can use recent history to help put things in perspective. This message I'm sharing today is powerful, and many people will benefit from hearing it. We unfortunately live in a world where most news and media sources paint a negative picture of our world. But in reality, by almost all measures, our lives have improved and continue to improve. With the research I'm about to share, it's hard not to be more optimistic. Now, before we jump in, I'd really appreciate it if you just tap the like button down below as well as subscribe to my channel. So, why you're living better than America's richest man? I've done a lot of research, and I've broken my research into kind of high-level categories. All right, one category that we've seen massive improvements is food. There's still food scarcity in many parts of the world, but we've come a long way. In America, food stamps, food shelters, and other programs give people who can't provide for themselves, or choose not to, more than enough to survive. In America, obesity is now running rampant among the poor, even though there's often access to healthier food that costs less. This is thanks to improved agriculture and the invention of cheap plastics, refrigeration, and better supply chains. One luxury we all take for granted is access to fresh fruit from around the world. Bananas from Ecuador, avocados from Mexico, and oranges from Florida, year-round. Rockefeller might have been able to order some fresh fruit from different countries, but the options were much more limited and would have cost an arm and a leg. Now, another kind of top-line category that's seen big improvement is travel. And just a unique example, Around the World in 80 Days was first published in 1872. In the story, the main character attempts to travel around the world in 80 days. That's based on a 20,000 pound wager, or in today's terms, over 2 million pounds. And as good stories go, winning the wager was a very close call. Sorry for the spoiler. This is a great example that shows how far we've come. Over a century ago, traveling was much slower moving and cost a fortune. On top of that, comfort and safety were lacking. Some places we can access today weren't even an option back then. Thanks to modern marvels that only continue to get better, people can now travel around the world in a fraction of the time and at a fraction of the cost. For a few $1,000s and less time than a week, you could travel around the world. And if you planned well, that could even give you some time for longer layovers to explore. Another category that's seen vast improvement is housing and shelter. In 1902, an American inventor built the first electrical air conditioning unit. It then took another 50 years before home unit sales really took off. If you live through warm summers, I'm sure you appreciate cooling innovation. It also spurred population growth in Florida and other Sun Belt states by making it a little more comfortable. Another overlooked luxury we have today is plumbing and showers. In 1940, almost half of houses in the US didn't have piped hot water, flush toilets, or a bathtub or shower. As a result, these amenities were often seen as status symbols. Fast forward to today, and now the majority of people living below the poverty line in the US have these amenities in their homes. Plumbing, cooling, heating, and other technologies have made housing cheaper, safer, and more comfortable. We've got it much better than our grandparents, but we rarely think twice about these great innovations that have improved all of our lives. Another category that's seen vast improvement is the health space. Life expectancy in the US has climbed from 47 years in 1900 to about 80 years today. That's a 70% increase in only a few generations, and it's thanks to a wide range of health research and medical innovation. So let's look back about 150 years to see how far we've come. In the 19th century, germ theory was just an obscure idea. Doctors and surgeons didn't wash their hands between patients. As a result, infections spread and led to millions of preventable deaths. Then, not long after, we started to understand bacteria. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in 1928, and it was the first antibiotic. That discovery, along with other inventions such as the X-ray, helped prevent deaths and improve all of our lives. Now, jumping back to current day, gene sequencing and editing, surgery robots, artificial intelligence, and other breakthroughs are continuing to improve longevity. Also, an important piece to our improved longevity is the quality of life. Anesthesia and other pain prevention and management tools have improved as well. Also, how we spend our extra days is improving with access to better entertainment and education, which is a segue into my next category, education. Gutenberg invented the printing press almost 500 years before Rockefeller's heyday. This led to sharing information on a scale that the world had never seen before. Fast forward a few hundred years and public libraries started to pop up. Most sources claim that Boston provided the first public library in the 1700s. Around that time, public schools also started to appear. People were becoming more educated. Now, jump forward to the last century, most of our grandparents had access to public schools and libraries, although even their education experience was a big difference compared to our ability to learn today. If they wanted to research a certain topic, they'd have to trek to the nearest library. If the library didn't have it, they'd have to either give up or continue on to the next library to find it. Now, today, the internet has improved our ability to learn by leaps and bounds. We have answers to millions of questions at the tips of our fingers. We can learn how to treat tens of thousands of ailments. We can find millions of recipes. We can check the weather, which is also more accurate. And overall, finding and sharing information continues to improve each year. Another category that we all enjoy and that has improved is entertainment. For entertainment, Rockefeller could have had company over, gone to plays and sporting events, or read books. And towards the end of his life, he could have also bought a gramophone for music. The invention of television was also in its infancy, but overall, Rockefeller didn't have access to the vast entertainment tools and libraries we have today. At low to no cost, you can stream millions of entertaining songs and videos online, and the quality is starting to become indistinguishable from real life. Also, with Google Maps, you can explore the world from the comfort of your home. On top of that, video games are a favorite pastime for nearly 500 million people around the world, and only continue to grow. Now, some people will argue this entertainment isn't as good, but here's my response. You can still have company over, go to plays and sporting events, or read books, though there's a big difference today. You can do all these things in a more convenient way than in the past. But still, most people opt for more enjoyable entertainment that's popped up over the last few decades. Another category that's seen massive improvement is equality. In 1920, women gained the freedom to vote in the US. That's thanks to the suffrage movement and the 19th Amendment. Since women's rights have come a long way. Gender equality in the work world and elsewhere still isn't perfect, but it continues to get better. When it comes to race and other factors, there's been big improvements as well. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act outlawed discrimination based on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. Since then, we've come a long way. For proof, Americans elected Barack Obama for 2 presidential terms. Now, unfortunately, there's still discrimination today, but I'm optimistic that things will continue to improve. As the general public continues to become better educated, they become more tolerant of different cultures and beliefs. One underlying theme in the categories is improving wealth. People measure wealth in many ways, but today we can exchange our time and efforts for more than any point in the past. For example, in 1960, about 17% of the average American's disposable income went towards food. About 17%. Today, it's dropped just below 10%, and it would even drop a little further if eating out didn't become as popular. On top of this, there's a much bigger wealth safety net today. By signing the Social Security Act in 1935, Roosevelt was the first president to advocate federal help for the elderly. The act was also intended to help Americans through poverty and unemployment. Now, fast forward to today, Social Security is much broader and the government has created over 80 means-tested welfare programs. On top of this, there might soon be universal basic income. I've done some unique research into our economy as well as the welfare system, and I'll leave a link to that research down in the comments below. Overall, people today can survive completely off of government assistance. Now, it's not a luxurious lifestyle, but that's a luxury our ancestors did not have. With the research I've shared, I hope you can walk away with a more optimistic view of our world. Progress is a bit bumpy in the short term, there are setbacks, but overall, our lives are continuing to improve. And keep in mind that progress tends to disappoint in the short run and surprises us in the long run. I'll let that sink in for a moment. Progress tends to disappoint in the short run and surprises in the long run. There are no longer easy problems to solve. We've already solved them, and with new progress comes more problems. But once again, I'm optimistic that we'll find solutions. There will always be doubters, necessarily, even educated naysayers, but with history as a guide and enough time, they're proven wrong again and again. In 1968, a Stanford professor published his book, The Population Bomb. He predicted worldwide famine in the 1970s and 1980s due to overpopulation. But to all of our benefit, that didn't happen. We developed better plants and agricultural systems to feed the growing population. This professor and so many others undervalue the potential of human innovation. There are a lot of serious problems today, such as global warming, although I'm optimistic that we'll find solutions. Our world has more minds, more intelligent minds, to solve the new problems that pop up. Now, I want to leave you with one final thought. As an investor, not a short-term speculator, I have to be optimistic about the future. Otherwise, what would be the point of investing for the future? I really appreciate it that you checked out my research today, and I'd really appreciate it if you just tap the like button down below as well as subscribe to my channel. And feel free to leave any comments or reach out. I'm still working on my message delivery and just appreciate any feedback. So once again, thanks for stopping by.